There are moments in life when the noise around us becomes overwhelming, when opinions, expectations, and fears echo so loudly that we forget the quiet truth already placed within our hearts. Silence is not weakness. It is not surrender. Silence is the space where Allah realigns what is scattered, heals what is broken, and arranges what we cannot. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back, breathe, and trust the unseen orchestration happening behind every delay, every detour, every unanswered prayer. When you choose silence, you are not choosing passivity, you are choosing clarity. You are allowing your heart to detach from the chaos, to rise above the need to react, to defend, to explain. You are giving Allah room to work. Because when you stop forcing outcomes, you begin to witness miracles unfold naturally. And the peace that follows is not from getting what you wanted, but from realizing that every step, even the painful one, were leading you to exactly where you were meant to be. Stay silent, stay patient, stay trusting, and watch how everything begins to fall perfectly into place. Silence creates space for clarity and spiritual grounding because it pulls you away from the noise that constantly tries to shape your thoughts, your emotions, and even your sense of self. In a world where everything demands an instant reaction, messages, opinions, expectations, silence becomes an act of liberation. It frees you from the pressure to respond immediately, to defend yourself, to prove something, or to control outcomes. When you step into silence, you step out of the frantic pace of life and into the calmness that your soul has been desperately longing for. Silence softens the internal storms, allowing the heart to finally breathe after carrying so much weight. It gives you permission to pause, to become still enough to hear what you were too overwhelmed to notice before. And in that stillness, something beautiful begins to happen. Clarity rises to the surface. Clarity is not something you chase. It is something that emerges when the noise dissolves. The heart becomes like water settling after being shaken. The dirt slowly sinks, the confusion clears, and you begin to see things as they truly are. Silence allows you to separate what is real from what is imagined, what is from Allah from what is merely a projection of your fears or the echoes of the world's expectations. It helps you see the difference between emotional impulses and divine guidance. When you stop speaking, you start listening, not to people, not to your worries, but to the quiet wisdom that Allah places inside you through reflection, intuition, and a softened heart. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers that cannot be heard when everything else is loud. And this silence does not only bring clarity, it anchors you spiritually. It draws you inward, where the soul recognizes the presence of Allah more deeply. When you're silent, you're no longer distracted by the external noise that keeps pulling you outward, away from yourself and away from your Creator. Silence becomes a form of worship, a moment of surrender where the heart says, I don't need to speak. I don't need to control. I trust you. It is in this quiet surrender that the soul finds grounding. You reconnect with your purpose, your values, your faith. You begin to reflect on your journey not from a place of panic, but from a place of trust. And that trust becomes the foundation that steadies you through uncertainty. In silence, you realize how often your reactions come from fear rather than faith. Fear of losing something, fear of being misunderstood, fear of the unknown. But when you sit quietly, these fears lose their power. They stop driving your decisions. You begin to respond from a place of wisdom instead of emotion. You stop pouring energy into things that drain you. You stop forcing answers that are not ready to come. Silence teaches patience, real, deep patience that comes from knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as Allah ordained. Silence is also where healing begins. Words can sometimes reopen wounds, but silence allows them to close. It gives you space to process what hurt you, to understand your emotions, and to gently release what you have been holding on to for too long. It protects you from reacting in ways that harm your peace or compromise your dignity. In silence, you do not shrink, you rise, you regain your strength, your perspective, and your sense of inner balance. And when clarity and grounding meet, something powerful happens. Life starts making sense again. The decisions that once felt heavy become easier. The relationships that were confusing become. The paths that seemed uncertain begin to show direction. Silence becomes a compass, guiding you back to yourself and back to Allah. That is why silence is not a retreat, it is a return. A return to your heart, a return to your faith, a return to the wisdom that was waiting for you beneath all the noise. And in that return, clarity blossoms and the soul is grounded in a peace that cannot be shaken by any storm. So trusting Allah's unseen plan brings peace even in uncertainty because it allows the heart to rest in something far greater than human understanding. Life is filled with unanswered questions, unexpected changes, and moments that leave you wondering why things unfolded the way they did. In those moments, the mind tries to solve what is not meant to be solved, and the heart tries to control what was never meant to be controlled. But when you choose to trust the unseen, when you place your fears, your hopes, and your unanswered prayers in the hands of Allah, you begin to feel a different kind of calm. A calm that does not come from having everything figured out, but from knowing you don't have to. You trust that the one who created your heart knows exactly what it needs, even when you do not. This trust is not blind to do not. It is rooted in the countless times Allah has carried you through situations you once thought you wouldn't survive. You look back and realize that what felt like a delay was actually protection, and what felt like an ending was actually a beginning. Faith teaches you to see beyond the moment, to believe that everything that happens is part of a tapestry you can only see a small piece of. When you trust Allah's plan, you accept that your life is not random. Your pain is not meaningless. Your waiting is not wasted. Every step, even the ones that confuse you, are leading you towards something purposeful. Uncertainty becomes less frightening when you stop viewing it as an obstacle and start seeing it as a space where Allah works the most. It is in the unclear moments that your heart is stretched, refined, and reshaped. You learn patience. You learn surrender. You learn humility. You learn that relying on your own understanding only takes you so far, but relying on Allah changes everything. When you trust His plan, you're no longer paralyzed by the fear of the unknown, because you know the unknown is held by the one who is all. You no longer drown in what ifs, because you anchor yourself in He knows and He will never abandon me. The trusting the unseen also frees you from the need to rush. You stop pushing for doors that were never meant for you. You stop breaking yourself to make things happen on your timeline. You learn to breathe, to wait, and to walk through life with a heart that is calm even when life is not. Trust teaches you that what is meant for you will find you, not because of your effort alone, but because Allah has already written it with perfection. You begin to realize that sometimes things fall apart not because Allah is punishing you, but because He is redirecting you. Sometimes He removes what you thought you needed so He can give you something better. Sometimes He delays what you long for because the timing isn't right. And sometimes He places you in situations that feel heavy so you can grow into the version of yourself you need to be. When you trust Allah's unseen plan, your heart becomes lighter. The whispers of anxiety quiet down. The restlessness inside you softens. You no longer need to know how everything will unfold. You just need to take the next step with faith. You allow life to move with divine rhythm instead of your own. You find peace not in certainty, but in surrender. And this peace is deeper, stronger, and more lasting than anything the world can offer, because it comes from knowing that Allah is with you, guiding you, protecting you, and preparing you for something greater than what you can imagine. Peace comes from realizing that Allah is not just the author of your story. He is the protector of your heart. He knows the prayers you whisper, the tears you hide, the strength you pretend to have, and the moments when you feel like collapsing. And He promises that for every difficulty, there is ease. Trusting Him means believing that this promise is true even when you cannot see the ease yet. It means holding on to hope even when the path feels dark. It means reminding yourself that Allah's plan is never delayed, never imperfect, and never against you. So even in uncertainty, trust. Trust that Allah is preparing you. Trust that He is protecting you. Trust that He is arranging everything in a way that will make sense one day. And trust that the peace you seek is already on its way, carried within the very plan you cannot yet see. You don't need to force outcomes. Divine timing works flawlessly because what is written for you will never miss you, and what is not meant for you will never stay no matter how tightly you try to hold onto it. Life becomes heavy when you try to control every detail, every relationship, every opportunity, and every outcome. You exhaust yourself believing that everything depends on your effort alone, but the truth is, there is a rhythm to life that you are not meant to overpower. A timing set by Allah that unfolds with perfect wisdom. Forcing outcomes is like pulling at a flower to make it bloom faster. Instead of helping it grow, you damage what was meant to blossom naturally. When you surrender the need to control and instead trust the timing of the one who sees the full picture, your heart begins to soften and your burdens begin to lift. Divine timing is not always easy to accept, especially when your heart longs for something deeply. You may feel ready, you may feel certain, you may feel desperate for things to happen now. But sometimes Allah delays not because you are unwilling, but because you are unprepared. Sometimes He withholds not because He wants to hurt you, but because the blessing will only make sense at a particular moment in your life. And if it arrived earlier, it could overwhelm you, distract you, or even destroy you. What you see as a delay is often preparation. What you see as stagnation is often protection. What you see as rejection is often redirection towards something better written for you. When you stop forcing outcomes, you begin to see the beauty in letting things unfold naturally. You begin to recognize that your job is not to manipulate life, but to show up with sincerity, take the steps you can, and trust that Allah will take care of the rest. You plant, you water them with effort and intention, but you do not control the rain, the sunlight, or the timing of the harvest. And in this surrender, there is freedom. You stop chasing people who are drifting away. You stop begging for opportunities that feel forced. You stop compromising your peace just to hold onto something that doesn't feel aligned. You learn that when something is meant for you, it will not require you to lose yourself to keep it. Divine timing also works flawlessly because it aligns your blessings with your personal growth. Sometimes you ask for something at a time when your heart is not ready to receive it. You may want love before you've healed. You may want success before you've built discipline. You may want opportunities before you've developed the strength to carry them. Allah knows what you can handle and when you can handle it. His timing shapes you before He delivers to you. It strengthens your patience, deepens your trust, refines your character, and protects your journey. And when the blessing finally arrives, you appreciate it more deeply because of the path you took to reach it. Life becomes far more peaceful when you embrace the idea that you cannot rush what is meant to take time. You cannot accelerate the lessons you are destined to learn. You cannot fast forward through the tests designed to elevate you. Divine timing is not slow, it is precise. Every delay has a meaning. Every pause has wisdom behind it. Every closed door has mercy woven into it. Even the things that break your heart are part of a larger plan that your eyes cannot yet see. When you release the urge to control everything, You create space for Allah to unfold things for you in ways that far exceed your expectations. You allow life to move at its natural, divinely designed pace. You stop running after what is leaving and trust that something better is approaching. You begin to understand that peace comes not from getting what you want immediately, but from knowing that if something is written for you, it will come in the most beautiful way at the most perfect moment. So you don't need to force outcomes. You don't need to chase what is slipping away. You don't need to fight the flow of life out of fear or impatience. Trust that divine timing is never late, never early, and never flawed. Trust that what is yours will find its way to you without you breaking yourself to make it happen. And trust that the one who is writing your story knows exactly when each chapter must unfold. When you live with this fuel, you begin to walk through life with a heart that is calm, a mind that is peaceful, and a soul that is aligned with the beauty of surrender. You begin to realize that letting go is not losing, it is making space for what was always meant to be yours. Detaching from noise allows the heart to heal and realign because the constant chatter of the world can easily drown out the voice of your own soul. Every day you are surrounded by noise, opinions, expectations, assumptions, comparisons, judgments, and endless streams of information that demand your attention. This noise does not only come from outside, it also comes from within. The overthinking, the doubts, the fears, the imagined scenarios, and the unresolved emotions create a storm inside your heart that never seems to settle. When you detach from this noise, even for a moment, you create a sacred space where your heart can breathe again. You give yourself permission to step away from the pressures that overwhelm you. In that stillness, your emotional wounds, which you have been carrying quietly, finally have room to begin healing. Noise has a way of keeping you distracted from what truly matters. It keeps you busy, restless, and constantly looking outward for answers or validation. It tells you that you must keep running, keep responding, keep explaining, keep proving yourself. But healing does not happen in chaos, it happens in calm. Healing requires silence and the courage to step away from what drains you. When you detach from the noise, you begin to notice the weight you've been carrying without even realizing it. You begin to understand how many of your thoughts were shaped by external voices instead of your own truth. You start to see where you were bending, breaking, or compromising yourself simply to meet expectations that were never meant for you. When the noise fades, clarity emerges. The heart, which was once overwhelmed by constant stimulation, becomes still enough to reflect. You start to recognize the emotions you've buried, the boundaries you've neglected, and the parts of yourself you've abandoned. This recognition is the first step toward healing. You give yourself the space to feel without judgment, to process without pressure, and to reconnect with the core of who you are. You begin to hear your own voice again, soft, steady, and honest. And that voice often tells you things you've been avoiding, what you truly need, what you should walk away from, what you should pursue, and what you must release. Detaching from noise also helps you realign spiritually. Your heart becomes more receptive to divine guidance when it is not overwhelmed by the world's distractions. You begin to notice the subtle ways Allah comforts you, the gentle signs He places in your path, and the moments of stillness that remind you you're not alone. When you detach, you step into a space where faith can grow, where trust deepens, and where you can reconnect with the purpose Allah intended for you. The heart realigns not only with itself, but with its creators. This realignment gives you strength, grounding, and a deeper sense of peace than anything external noise could ever offer. Healing also requires boundaries, and detaching from noise is one of the strongest boundaries you can create. It teaches you that you do not owe the world constant access to your mind or your emotions. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed to choose peace over pressure. And in doing so, you protect your heart from being shaped by forces that do not understand your journey. Instead of reacting to every voice, you begin responding only to what is meaningful. Instead of absorbing the chaos around you, you begin choosing what you allow into your space. Realignment means returning to what is true for you. It means honoring the parts of yourself that you have ignored while trying to meet expectations that exhausted your souls. It means remembering who you are beneath the noise, beneath the roles you play, beneath the opinions that surround you. When you detach, you return to that place of truth. You return to the center of your being, where peace exists naturally. You realign your heart with what brings you closer to Allah, to your purpose, and to your own inner stability. In this constant, you no longer feel the need to rush your healing or hide your pain. You begin to trust the process. You allow yourself to grow at your own pace. You begin to move through life more consciously, more gently, and more aligned with what nourishes your soul. You realize that healing is not about pretending to be unaffected by the noise. It is about choosing not to let it control you. It is about stepping away when you need to so you can return stronger, clearer, and more grounded. Detaching from noise is not withdrawal. It is wisdom. It is not running away. It is returning home. It is the quiet act of giving your heart the space it needs so it can heal from what has hurt it and realign with what was always meant to guide it. And once your heart realigns, you begin to move through life with a peace that remains steady no matter how loud the world around you becomes. Silence is strength, not weakness, rooted in faith and patience because it reflects a heart that is anchored, steady, and deeply connected to something greater than momentary emotions. In a world where people often equate loudness with power, silence becomes a form of quiet courage. It takes far more strength to remain composed than to react impulsively. It takes more wisdom to pause than to rush into words that may wound or regret that may return later. Silence is the choice of someone who knows their worth, someone who understands that not every situation deserves a reaction and not every battle is theirs to fight. It is the discipline of a soul that refuses to be controlled by anger, fear, ego, or chaos. Silence does not mean you are weak, defeated, or indifferent. It means you are grounded enough to act from clarity rather than emotion. When silence is rooted in faith, it becomes even more powerful. It becomes a form of surrender, not to people or circumstances, but to Allah. You silence your tongue because you trust that He will speak for you. You silence your fears because you trust that He will guide you. You silence your need to justify, defend, or prove yourself because you believe that Allah is the one who sees, knows, and protects. This kind of silence is not empty, it is full of reliance. It reflects a heart that believes deeply in divine justice, divine timing, and divine wisdom. You don't have to respond to every attack, every rumor, or every misunderstanding because you know that truth does not need noise. It only needs time. And Allah is the best guardian of truth. Patience is also woven into silence. To remain still when everything inside you wants to speak, explain, or react. That is patient. To hold back your anger, your frustration, and your disappointment because you refuse to let them define you. That is patient. To wait for clarity instead of forcing answers. That is patience. Silence teaches you emotional discipline. It teaches you to feel deeply yet respond wisely. It gives you the space needed to process your experiences without letting temporary emotions create permanent damage. In silence, your heart learns to breathe, to soften, and to regain its balance. And from that balance comes strength. Silence also protects your dignity. When you choose silence over argument, you refuse to lower yourself into unnecessary conflict. When you choose silence over gossip, you refuse to stain your heart. When you choose silence over complaining, you protect your spirit from negativity. Silence allows you to rise above situations that are beneath your character. It reminds you that not every opinion deserves your energy, and not every provocation deserves your response. There is strength in simply knowing that you don't need to prove your worth through words. Your worth through words, your actions, and your sincerity speak louder than anything you could say. Moreover, silence creates room for wisdom. When you stop speaking, you start seeing, you start understanding, you start discerning the intentions of others and the purpose of your own experiences. Silence sharpens your insight. It gives you the ability to listen, not just to others, but to your own intuition, your emotions, and your spiritual guidance. When you are quiet, you can feel the gentle nudges of your heart. You begin to distinguish between what must be held onto and what must be released. This clarity is a form of strength because it prevents you from making decisions driven by impulse or confusion. Silence also reflects a heart that trusts its journey. When you are silent, you are not withdrawing from the world, you are withdrawing from chaos to protect your inner peace. You choose to preserve your energy for what truly matters. You choose to speak only when your words can build, heal, guide, or uplift. Silence gives you control over yourself, your emotions, and your reactions. And that control is one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. Even in relationships, silence can be powerful. It gives space for reflection, healing, and understanding. It prevents unnecessary hurt. It teaches compassion, because in silence you choose not to escalate conflict, but to understand it. You choose not to react out of anger, but to respond from patience. Silence becomes a bridge for reconciliation and a shield from regret. Ultimately, silence is strength because it requires faith. Faith that you do not need to fight every battle on your own. Faith that Allah is with you. Faith that patience will bring clarity. And faith that what is meant for you will reach you without you having to force it. Silence is the language of the wise, the refuge of the peaceful, and the armor of the faithful. When you choose silence, you choose strength. Strength rooted not in fear, but in trust, not in weakness, but in spiritual certainty, not in passiveness, but in the powerful act of surrendering to Allah's perfect justice and perfect timing. What is meant for you will unfold without you breaking yourself to chase it, because the blessings written for your life were never designed to come through desperation, self-betrayal, or exhaustion. There is a natural flow to destiny, one that does not require you to lose your identity, your peace, or your dignity just to hold on to something. When you believe that everything destined for you is already written with perfection, you stop trying to force outcomes that were never meant to fit. You stop running after people who keep leaving. You stop clinging to situations that drain your spirit. You stop sacrificing your well-being for things that were never meant to be yours. Instead, you begin to move through life with a quiet confidence, trusting that what is truly yours will find you in a way that feels aligned, peaceful, and natural. Chasing something too hard often means you are afraid of losing it, yet what is truly written for you cannot be taken by anyone. You don't need to beg for love, because the heart that is meant for you will stay willingly. You don't need to chase opportunities, because the path meant for you will open at the right moment. You don't need to lower your standards or compromise your values just to be chosen. Anything that requires you to disappear, shrink, or break yourself is not destiny. It is attachment. And attachment often disguises itself as longing, making you think you need something in order to be complete. But what is meant for you adds to your life. It never empties you. When you stop chasing, you create the emotional and spiritual space needed to receive. Sometimes Allah withholds something because you're trying to carry it with wounds that haven't healed yet, or you're trying to receive it with hands that are holding onto the wrong things. When you let go of the urge to force lift, You allow Allah to bring you what is better for you. Things you couldn't even imagine while you were busy chasing what was hurting you. There is wisdom in the things that slip away. There is protection in unanswered prayers. There is mercy in closed doors. And when you look back one day, you will see that every no from Allah was a pathway to a better eyes that was coming your way. What is meant for you feels different. It feels calm. It feels steady. It doesn't demand that you sacrifice yourself, respect, or your boundaries. It flows with your growth rather than pulling you away from it. It aligns with your heart, your values, and your purpose. It strengthens you instead of weakening you. It brings clarity rather than confusion. When something is written for you, it arrives with ease. Not the absence of effort, but the absence of resistance. You still work, you still pray, you still strive, but you no longer exhaust yourself trying to force life into shapes it was never meant to take. You trust more, you worry take, and you learn to walk with grace even when you don't know the full plan. This mindset also protects you from self-destruction. Many people break themselves trying to keep things that were meant to leave. They chase after closure, after apologies, after validation, after people who have already shown they cannot stay. But trying to hold onto something Allah is removing only delays your healing and blinds you to better opportunities ahead. What is meant for you does not run away when tested. What is meant for you does not harm your heart. What is meant for you does not require you to abandon your inner peace. Sometimes, letting something go is the first step toward receiving what was meant for you all along. Trusting that what is destined for you will unfold at the right time teaches deep patience. It teaches you to stop rushing your story and stop comparing your journey to others. You begin to understand that everyone has their own timing, their own path, their own lessons. Your delay is not a denial. Your waiting is not a punishment. Your uncertainty is not a sign that nothing is happening. Often the unseen work is the most important part of your story. Allah preparing you, shaping you, and creating the right conditions for what is coming. When you carry this faith, you move through life with a lighter heart. You stop fearing loss because you know what leaves was never meant for you. You stop fearing the unknown because you trust the one who knows. You stop forcing life and instead you begin to align with it. You begin to understand that what is meant for you will not require you to break yourself. It will meet you with grace, find you with ease, and stay with sincerity. And when it finally arrives, you will realize why it took time, why it required patience, and why everything that came before had to happen the way it did. You will see that what is meant for you was always on its way. You just needed to stop chasing and allow it to unfold in the beautiful, divinely timed way it was meant to.